Trevor Zegras.
So I bring it up.
There's a guy who's young,
skilled. And you
what is he in the room? Do the guys like him? Is he this? Is he that? Is he overpaid? What's that whole thing? He's a young center who's scored 20 plus goals a couple of times in the league and is potentially available. Is this a
Yeah. So like
example?
you're Craig Conroy, you said we want to find a center so badly, someone young, right? No one that's got a great attitude and playing well will be available. Period. Stop. And so that's why it's an interesting case study, Dubois. Like, did Washington have any clue, or were they just trying to dump Kemper and maybe there's a 1 in 10 chance it works? Like, I don't know. It didn't look good at all last year, but all the skills that allowed Trevor Zegras to be great when he was 20 and 21 in this league are still there. Just like with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Yeah. So do you have the right kind of staff that can insulate the player, the right kind of leadership group that can bring a guy in? It clearly got off on the wrong foot with him in LA. And I think about James Neal in Calgary, like what he famously shaved Johnny's head when he was sleeping on the bus in China. And it was like, no, you're not on his line and you can't check. So now you're a third liner. And next thing you know, you're trading him for Milan Lucic's albatross contract. Like, it was done that quick.
Famously?
No, it is now.
Well, yeah, because
I think it's long enough has passed that, yeah, he got off on the wrong foot and it was like, see ya.
You ever shave a guy's head? Right.
I think we shaved our heads. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, it doesn't sound like that was a team thing.
Oh, yeah.
You'll bleach blonde for the turn.
Not when you're sleeping. Anywho.
A little buzz in the back of the head. Didn't like that. Odd.
Yeah.
Pick him up. Come on, Conroy. Do some. Zari's out.
Well, so is Zegras, to be fair. He's got a knee injury.
Yeah. And he doesn't fit the age profile, I don't think, in the sense that, like, he's going to be at UFA when you're about to get good.
Who's Zegs?
Yeah.
I don't think, again, I don't think you can focus too much on the age thing.
Really? That's all Connie's talked about.
If you keep waiting, but it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen where you have everybody in the perfect bubble.
No one's saying perfect. You're always going to have guys of different ages, but when your core has some young players in it, not fossils, then you supplement with UFAs.
Okay, for us laymen, explain what you're talking about. Zegras is a young centerman that you're trying to pick up on the, like you said, will he turn out? I don't know, but not
let's
very
say we all
often
want
are they
him,
available.
Right? Yeah, let's say you want to bet on him. I believe he's an RFA with Arbrights in a year.
Well, he's 23. You make it sound like
I'm not saying he's old. Let me finish here. So my point is that in 2 years, he'll make a decision. Am I going to stay in Calgary or not? And I don't think adding Trevor Zegras makes you good. So it's going to be 2 years in a Canadian market for an American on a team that's not competitive. I'm like, well, I just might rather be somewhere else. Whereas if you bring the same Zegras guy in 2 years, he's like, holy shit, this Zane Parrott kid's looking unreal in his second year, and these young kids are scoring all over. Hanzik, Basha, Gridden. No, they're not all going to pop Dino. No one's saying all these prospects are going to make it, but at least you've got a base and a core, and you look around like Brady Tkachuk probably did in Ottawa, and you say, you know what? There's enough here as an American. I will commit long term.
So Zegras
I don't think if you bring Zegras in for 2 years, he sees that because they're not here yet.
Okay, but so there is that.
That's the only point.
Okay, so it's not so much about age; it's about contract.
Contract plays a big role.
Because if Zegras is 23 and Parrick is 18 or 19, can Parrick be 20 and Zegras
Parrick
be 28?
Has to look like a good NHLer for Zegras to care about him. He doesn't care about a kid playing in the O.
But when you talk about age, it's just like 4 years. That
what I'm talking about is the amount of time it takes for the Calgary Flames to actually be a contender with their young players, not based on the play of Weegar and Anderson and Backlund and Kadri. They're not there yet. Their best players, one of them's under 25. Well, two if you count the goal.
Then you'd have Zegras under 25. He would be part of that base of young players that you're looking to have.
But the other guys aren't there yet. I mean, what are you expecting out of rookie years from guys? Like it takes 2-3 years for guys to figure out how to.
So who is the core then? I mean,
I would say in 3 or 4 years, a group of these players will be your core. Maybe it's Hanzik, maybe it's Gridden, maybe it's Basha, maybe it should be Parrick. And out of those 5 guys, if 2 or 3 reach their ceiling, you're talking about top half of the roster players to add to Connor Zary, to add to a Marty Pospisil who's playing down the lineup, to add to Dustin Wolf who's in his prime and under contract.
And why
they don't have a young team. They're not young. Like the challenge is that a lot of the reason they're good, the guys in 3 years won't be that good anymore. Like, what do you expect out of Nazem Kadri when he's 37?
But a 23-year-old will be 26 in 3 years, right? Just so I know that, just right? Like if you were to add a 23-year-old today,
but
you make it sound like he's going to be over the hill by the time
no, but he could just be
the
gone.
team is good.
He could be a UFA. Like you're missing my point.
So you can't get guys. So they need you can't get the contracts. Your I don't know how you're going to get anything done. All you can do is draft players and then hope they work out.
No, you have to be patient. It's not the time to add, is what I'm saying. If you went and added Marty Necas last year, you'd say, okay, I'll sign the 2-year deal I just signed to Carolina. Then I'm out of here. You're not good enough yet. You add those guys that are in their prime once there's something to build upon. The foundation hasn't been laid yet. They're less than a year into this rebuild. When did they trade Lindholm, Tanev, and Hanifin? That's when this started in earnest. And now we're already talking about adding guys.
Yeah, but it's a unique situation. It's just like
not adding a 30-year-old though. It's adding someone who you're.
No, it's adding a guy that's under team control for 2 more years.
Well, what if he comes out and here he does like and he has success and you're basically saying he's going to refuse to.
No, I'm just saying the timeline doesn't fit for me in terms of when I think this team's going to be competitive. I would put everything around that clock of 2027 when that new rink opens. And that's when you want to have a good, solid, young foundation of players that are in your core, and then you can add veterans to that.
You can also
take in their prime.
I don't know. I'm not saying that you should go get. And I don't have a clue what the price would be. And some of those guys that you're talking about they might be part of the package that has to go back the other way. So blah, 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 blah. But if you get the sense, if you traded for him and the deal makes sense for both teams, and he comes out here as a 23-year-old and you play the shit out of him and he's scoring 30 goals a year and he's very talented and your power plays better and your team is somewhat competitive, he won't re-sign. And if you find that out, you can trade him then as
What's
a higher.
Is the goal to be 7th in the West or win a cup?
What's their approach this year though? Like
no, and I'm not saying like here's a trivia question answer, Rhett. It's like if you just want to get into the playoffs, Trevor Zegras helps you. If you want a cup, it does not help. I don't think
so. He's 23 years old.
He helps you get guys that are high. They need to draft high to win a cup. Period. Stop.
I think that you're being too flippant about that. If he does come and help your team get into playoffs, that's a great thing. Like they're in that position right now.
So what would you rather have?
He's still only 23
picks or Trevor Zegras?
Sorry, I was talking when you what?
I just think my vision of how you make this team competitive for a long time and a cup contender, not just a team that gets in and bows out in the first round and we call that a good year, is you're actually going to have to draft in the top 5 multiple times in the next few years. Trevor Zegras coming in hurts that plan. If your idea is, hey, we can still win with Weegar and we're not going to trade Anderson and we're going to keep Cotter to the end of his deal and we've already got Huberdeau and you just want to get in and not win cups, bring in Trevor Zegras tomorrow. That'll check the box for you.
The only reason that I talk about Zegras is I feel he has skill level beyond anything you have.
Yep.
In the franchise, an ability to get a guy who's a center, a position of need, who has shown world-class skill. And there's no guarantee you can draft that regardless of where you pick. That's all it is. He's American, he's an American, so do Americans want to stay? He's got 2 years left, so there is all of that. But to me, it's just about using your draft capital, your equity to get skill.
So let's say it costs a first and one of your top 5 prospects. Do you do it? I have no interest at that price.
I mean,
okay, that's fine. But let's just go back 2 years and go, so if that first is Sam Honzek, would you do it? Playing it forward. So 2 years out from now, you didn't make this deal. You kept your guys, the guy you have already drafted, whatever. And that draft pack turns out to be a guy like Samuel Honzek. Then what?
Well, I mean,
what would you rather have?
You'd rather have Zegras than Honzek 100% right now today. But on the draft floor, Connie would probably say the opposite. So you don't have the.
I know, but the reality, I'm asking you, and it sounds like we're taking again cheap shots at Honzek, but there is the fact that this team has as much opportunity to draft 13th as they do 5th. And at that point,
they're not going to pick 13. They'll be giving that pick to Montreal. They'll be picking.
Well,
you know what he's
24.
saying, though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, Ryan? Like,
No, it's even worse, though. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, like that's the point. Is that great? You want a top 5? Then they shouldn't keep Uyghur or any of these.
They should trade Anderson.
They should trade Anderson yesterday
or at the deadline.
That's not going to be the approach they take. That's your.
But you
approach.
would, Ryan. You want a bottom right out trade, get as bad as possible.
Not as bad as possible, but at least be very good at asset management. Like, here's the thing that makes.
But you're talking about picking top 5, so that's bad. You're talking about getting.
Yeah. I'm not saying you need to be a decade of finishing last, but be tactical when you have an opportunity to. And so Rasmus Anderson making $4.55 million, that's amazing for most teams, right? If you could have that player at that number. It's not a hard question. Yeah. Okay. So Rasmus Anderson making $4.55 million for the Calgary Flames does fuck all. They have $20 million in cap space. And so by holding him here for 2 years at a huge value, it gives them no benefit compared to what it would mean to a Dallas, a Toronto, a Vancouver, a New York, any contender. There's like 6 or 7 teams that aren't capped out. He would be so valuable to those teams compared to what he is for the Calgary Flames because he can do it at a rate they couldn't afford to bring a guy in to do.
If you spent $20 million more on your roster, would that change your opinion?
On this roster?
Yeah. If you
course,
went and got Dubois, you could have went, I'm sure the Flames could have went and got Dubois.
Yeah.
Right? In the summer. I think they're stuck somewhere where they didn't think they were going to be.
Agreed.
I think if you go back, my take on things is basically the same as yours, but I don't think that's the reality of how this team is going to operate.
I agree with that. I think the owner probably wants to.
And you saying they've got $20 million in cap space could be. You could turn that around and go, Conroy, what the F are you doing? You're a couple points out of a playoff spot. Go spend that 20 effing million and bring in some difference makers.
Yeah, and that would be falling into the traps of all the failures they've had in the last 20 years, but it might be something the owner wants them to do. The other thing is you don't get to keep it for next year. So if you're not eating bad contracts with that 20 million, it's a completely wasted opportunity. If you don't take on, like, take on some bad deals. Help the Rangers with a shitty contract. Like, Trouba had 2 years left.
That I agree.
An asset for him?
It's the one thing that I think Connie's done a good job, and I don't know if his hands to a certain extent are tied, but it feels like there have been other teams who have taken on arduous contracts.
Arizona did
and gotten paid to do so.
Seconds.
Already today, word out of Pittsburgh is there's players available, and if you're looking to offload a contract that's onerous to you, we would be open to that as well. That's what I want to hear from the Flames. We're open for business
because they're not doing either.
My fear is that it was so noisy last year. Craig's afraid to do anything right now. And I don't think that's the case. It's my fear. But if you don't sell Anderson at the deadline, his value will never be this high again. You're selling 2 playoff runs and a guy making half of his market value or something like that. That would be a missed opportunity if he ends up not staying anyway, or if you're just not good when you do keep him. And the other one is that this cap space, turn it into picks.
Well, you have to do one or the other, do you not? And I know that
we talked about it. I fear they might not.
6 weeks ago, I was like, go and get a number one. Like, it's easy to say and do, blah, 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 or easy to say not to do. But that cap space is such a wasted opportunity one way or the other. You can't tell me that you wouldn't have been, if you couldn't have gone and signed someone that would have helped score a couple more goals this year to give you another 5, 6, 7 points to get you in that play. Maybe not even the full 20 million, but 20 million should buy you what, 5 to 10 points in the regular season.
Yeah.
That's a fifth of your salary.
I don't mind them having the 20 million right now.
I don't either, but they're not using it for anything.
Yeah. Use it to be good or use it to be bad and get better.
How many deals have we seen around the league this year? Like, not a ton. All the deals happen at the deadline. If you can use this 20 million between the now and the deadline, there's no fault here. But if you get past the deadline and you got $20 million still sitting there, it may as well just be like flushing a couple seconds in a third.
$20 million sitting there that hasn't helped you be bad or put you into a better playoff situation.
It has not made you
wasted.
Not a better roster, nor allowed you to use it to pick up cap or young players.
I'll say this.
Team with a bad contract, we'll bring them in, take a prospect with them. They haven't done it.
Craig knows, right?
Yeah, he knows.
He knows, and he wants to. My sense would be, like you say, there's just not a lot of deals. There's some deals, but until you get closer to it, teams you're not going to get your best deal, that whole thing, the pressure points and all of that. A team's maybe not going to give you what you want to take on salary. The question needs to be and I don't know why they wouldn't be, but is ownership okay with it? You're a cap team pretty much every year, and sometimes you make the playoffs and sometimes you don't. Why not be a cap team this year and get some assets for it? It's not like you're suddenly 1 year overspending or spending lavishly. You do it all the time.
Take on some bad money, get some picks.
So, I mean, I do. Conroy's talking to people. He's out there. He's looking for those deals, but nothing. There's no real desperation until you get closer to the deadline.
It doesn't matter they're not using it now. It just has to be getting used by the deadline. That's all it is. Go be a banker. Eat half the money, take a third, pass the player to the next team.
Yes and no, but Conroy should have an answer from the owner. Am I going to be allowed to chew on some shitty contracts?
Yeah.
Or am I allowed to go add something? Because if you get to the trade deadline and you knew damn well you weren't allowed to eat bad money, then you've wasted that space.
100%.
Like it's all fine and good for us to say, well, we'll know at the deadline. Sure. But Conroy should know now.
I think he probably does too. Yeah.
I think he does.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.